Welcome back, Mobile Home Park Nation. Ferd here again today with another episode of the Mobile Home Park Lawyer Podcast. Special guest today. You've seen him before. You've heard me talk about him. My dad, my business partner, Ferd III. How's it going, Dad?
Hey, going great, son. How are you today?
Doing all right. Aside from the usual, tenant problems, client problems, personal problems, drinking problem. I don't know. I'm doing okay. Um, everything's fun here. So today is we're recording episode 100. Kind of hard to believe I've sank this much time into a podcast, but here we are. It's worked out okay. It's been a lot of work, a lot of fun. Um, been just a good experience. So I don't remember if it was me or you or Kristen. One of us came up with the idea of sharing some funny stories. So we thought today maybe we would do more of a lighthearted episode. One day we'll write a book telling all the funny stories, but today we'll hit on a few of them. So I thought it'd be a good chance to go through. You tell us some of the your stories here. We'll get some other people on here, maybe some another time do the same thing. But tell us some of your funny stories, and maybe I've got a few of my own. I'll chime in, but really just tell us some of the chaos and craziness and fun that happens in the mobile home park business.
Yeah, I sure will. It's an interesting business. We say that all the time with all the people we deal with, and we have mostly good folks that just need an affordable place to live. But we run into some characters also. Part of our task every day is collecting rent. I remember one time we were talking to a resident, and she was sort of singing the blues, and she said, my mother died 32 years ago, and it's been downhill ever since. we had we had one resident. This is in the same park. We took him to court for non-payment to evict him, and he was telling the judge his story. And for some reason, he thought it would be a good idea to tell the judge that, yeah, I disconnected my sewer pipe, and I've been going to the bathroom in a bucket for 2 months. The judge just looked at him and pretty much said next.
I remember that guy. He was actually, that guy was such a pain. We ended up having to get rid of him. I telling somebody a story the other day. We were trying to sell that park, and you never want to have a violent act in your park in general, but especially when you're trying to sell it, especially a murder. And this guy was a sex offender that was in the park before he bought it. We had trouble getting rid of him, and he was sleeping with another guy's twin sister, and he was like 16. This guy's like 45, and the girl was 16. And the brother came and hit him over the head with a baseball bat, 20 times or something. And he thought he killed him, and he didn't somehow. Put him in a coma, had a bunch of staples in his head, and comes back out of hospital carrying a baseball bat. And then we got two guys carrying baseball bats, and the city didn't see that to be a potential problem or threat. And we're like, guys, we're about to have a murder here. And it would have been a baseball bat murder, not a drive-by shooting, but it would look the same on the public news, person murdered at this trailer park. Good luck selling that. So I was just like, that park was a labor of love. You haven't prioritized it yet. I just recorded a podcast on a couple of parks case studies, and I mentioned that one as having, man, it gave me all my gray hair. Still got some to go, I guess. But yeah, that guy was a real treat. So that's the closest we've ever had to a real safety murder incident. But thank God it didn't happen. But thank God we got rid of that guy. But yeah, just poop going down the street, going down the sidewalk, rolling to the neighbor's house. He didn't care.
Yeah, unbelievable. Interesting business. We also had in the same park. This is an interesting park, I guess. We had just bought it, and sent out the rent notice, and she hadn't paid. This one gal had not paid. And we found out that she had not paid rent for 51 months in a row. Out of state owners, they fell for the sad story that she had cancer, and she played that to the hilt. I mean, she wore the do-rag all the time and just didn't pay rent. After we carefully explained to her our no pay, no stay policy, guess what? She didn't make it to 52 months in a row. She started paying that month and paid every month thereafter. But she conned the other owners 51 times in a row.
Oh, I remember her. She was not only the other owner, she told everybody the first day in the park, "Did you hear about Susie? Oh, Susie's got cancer." It's like, that's unfortunate. Does Susie even really have cancer? I mean, like, is this just her story? I thought it was like 62 months. Maybe because that was over 5 years. It was, yeah, just decided not paying, not going to do it. And yeah, everybody bought the story, but that's There's definitely the no pay, no stay policy works. And this was pre-COVID, before you couldn't even evict people. The landlord just didn't do anything. Well, whatever. She'll pay next month.
Yep.
She would have lived there. Well, the guy we just in Independence, the guy who lived in that duplex before he had it, he hadn't paid rent in 10 years. He was the maintenance guy. Nobody was doing maintenance to that property, and he didn't paid in 10 years.
Yep.
It's craziness. But
we just had an incident, not an incident, but something come up last week where we have an 833 number. So if our residents need to call in and with a request or a question, they call the automated 833 number. And we have a couple words associated with that to make it easy to remember. So I texted this gal and I said, from now on, call the 833 number with the words. She texted me back and says, what's the number?
Yeah, 833 MHP rent. Yeah, she didn't figure out the M, H, and P and the R, E, and T are on your cell phone. Hey, that's definitely crazy, a little crazy. But
Yep.
What else you got, Dad? What's another fun story from
one time we had an applicant apply, and we do a background check, of course. But this gal, we talked to her ahead of time because she had called, and she said, "Yeah, I just got out of prison for murder for hire. Would that be a problem?"
Yeah, let me save you $50. Yeah, that one's going to be a problem. I know. I had a guy sitting in front of us one time who's, and I kid you not, he asked if he could have the house next to the playground. He goes, but I need to disclose I'm a registered sex offender. Like, why on earth would we, one, approve of sex offender in a place that has lots of kids, but two, put you next to the playground upon request? I mean, if there's the dumbest thing you could ever say in an interview, it was that. I think it was that. Other than like, yeah, I got evicted for beating up my last landlord. That would have been the only thing I think worse. Knock on wood, neither one of us been beat up. But what happened? Tell the story of that other lady near your home who was her landlord. Her tenants like tied her up and duct taped her to a chair and stabbed her and left her for dead, didn't they? That was like the worst.
This was actually a mobile home park owner, and she was a mobile home dealer. And this was years ago, and she was an elderly lady. She was probably 78 at the time. And somebody broke in and tied her up and stabbed her like 43 times. And somehow they must have been bad at this, I guess, bad at murder, but she survived and they caught the guy. But yeah, just a horrific thing. You never know.
I know. I met her one time, and she was like 90 years old, and she was like, "They didn't scare me off my property," and she kept going. She was a tough old bird. But
yeah, that's right. That's right. We had somebody last week. We end up after we send out letters to collect rent, send out notices we post on the door. But then if they don't respond, we make a physical or a personal phone call or a visit by one of our park greeters or managers. And we had one lady call one time and singing the blues. And she says, yeah, you guys just sit around getting fat, eating steak and lobster all day. So it's a totally different perspective.
That reminds me of an applicant you had one time where the guy had the money, but we needed his background check. We need to prove his income. He make sure he had the down payment or whatever. We're like, we need to make sure you got the income. We're like, what do you do for a living? And he's like, I'm in the caviar business. And we're like, the caviar business in Western Illinois. And I thought that was like, is this code for like, I'm in the drug business? Is it telling us? It's like, what is and we looked it up, and he owned like a caviar wholesale company, or his dad owned it. It was like, you're really in the caviar business, and they make big bucks. He was I don't remember what it was, buy a nice house. And anyway, it was odd.
Yeah. I got a few stories on new parks too. When we look at or buy a new park, we have bought one park in Central Illinois, and during due diligence, there was no line item for snow removal, and it snows around us. But there was a city street going, part way into the park. So we figured there's no line item, no expense, nobody on the payroll plowing snow. So we figured, well, the city must just keep going. That the snowplow operator probably does not know that these are private streets. So we didn't put any money in. We didn't hire a snowplow guy. Turns out the first 6-inch snow, nobody plowed. Yeah. Then we hired a snowplow guy.
Yeah, I remember we asked Barry that, and he's like, the last guys just never plowed the snow. If it snowed a bunch, you just stayed home from work for a few days. Like,
yep. The same park also, We found out the first week, there's every time it rained, there was a foot or a foot and a half of water in the center street. It had been that way for years. And the residents complained and they couldn't get to their cars that lived on that end of the street. So we checked into it. Somebody had put an old plastic trash can down the sewer line. So every time it rained, it totally backed up till it drained a couple of days later. And the previous owner or the local manager on site did nothing about it. So we looked like champs after a week for taking care of that, insurmountable problem.
Well, I remember we kind of got lucky because one, we didn't see that in our due diligence. It didn't rain on our 2 or 3 site visits. Nobody told us of this flooding. And then first rain when we own the park, it's a mess. We're like, we have a major stormwater sewer problem. Hire a local contractor. He could have fleeced us and told us, oh, I had to fix the main. It's going to cost you $2,000 or $5,000, or I got to excavate this. He charged us $50, went down there, said, there's a trash can plug in the hole. He threw it away. I mean, it was like, oh, he was the real hero, I think, for not taking advantage of us, because he could have. We weren't on site, and you could see the water drain. It looked like a massive problem, but it clearly wasn't.
Yep. We got started in the mobile home park business a number of years ago, and we started in our hometown. And I started calling park owners. There's 13 in town. I called the first 12, and the overriding comment I got every time was, "I'll never sell. It's a cash cow." Finally, the 13th owner, I called him. He said, yeah, I'll sell. And we ended up buying it from him, and it was a cash cow.
Yeah. That guy was something too.
Yeah.
There's a lesson there on, having a good relationship with the seller and trying not to cause a fight. And I had a bunch of clients that just don't take this advice. They fight to the last second. And sometimes it's because the seller's a pain or the other buyer's a pain. But on this one, we had a good relationship with the guy, closed on it like we said we would. And then it wasn't, I don't know, a couple months later, we needed to shut off the master water, and we didn't know where it was. And it was in a location we'd never found, like across the street, across the creek, in a cornfield on somebody else's property. And this guy knew. We called him and he's like, oh yeah, the previous guy told me I never would have found it. And it's like, had we pissed that guy off at closing, he probably would have just said tough, and then we'd have to pay to put it and shut up, get the city involved. But a huge pain.
Yeah. Got just a few stories on contractors or handymen. We've gone through a number of handymen that I guess everybody that's unemployed that has a hammer can call themselves a handyman. And so we've gone through a number of them over the years. We had one guy install, we had a basketball pole in a new park on a blacktop, basketball court. So I had him install a hoop, and he did put it up at 11'6".
I know it.
Must not have had a tape measure. We had one time too, we had a handyman, or not, HVAC contractor, a licensed contractor, install a used furnace in one of our homes. And this was early on, learned from experience. But anyhow, I met him there at 7:00 at night. He was just about done. I just got to put the switch on and I'll be all done and ready to go. And anyhow, I gave him a check for $1,000 and left. After it didn't work the next day, my new HVAC guy came over and said, this furnace will never, ever work. I would have chased him, but visiting hours in prison are hard for me to make. So he got away with it.
Is he the guy that did that to a bunch of people, and there was like 75 people waiting in line to sue him and arrest him?
Yeah.
I remember that guy.
And I actually went to court with him. And as we're walking out of the court, he catches my eye as we're walking out. He says, I'm going to pay you that $1,000. And that's the last we ever heard from him. He's crazy. We had one guy again on the pro versus schmo. We had a home over in Canton ready to come in, and we had to pour concrete piers. So I spray painted on the ground exactly where these concrete piers are going to go. We had a new guy. Instead of digging them where I spray painted, he went exactly 2 feet away and put the whole row 2 feet away. I never did find out why.
It's hard to figure people sometimes.
Yeah. I got just a couple more. This is in our office, just sort of miscellaneous. About a year ago, we decided to do a weight loss contest with all of our staff. And I told my son later, I said, that Kristen in our office, she is such a nice gal. She offered to bring in donuts every day.
Sets you up for failure. That's
Yeah.
for sure.
But the only one I got right now is one time we had to evict someone from one of our rental homes and take it back. And we went in, we had it, we just installed a brand new toilet, I don't know, a month before. On the way out the door, they stole the brand new toilet, brought in an old used one, and installed it.
That's
There's not
crazy.
much that surprises us anymore.
No, that's definitely not the norm. We've got one resident here in Kansas City that they replaced all. They had a kind of a they're a Section 8 renter, and they're like, I don't like using toilets that other people have used. So first couple days in the home, they put in brand new toilets and they gave us our toilets back. And they're like, if we ever move out, we'll switch them back, or you can have them. And that couple has, you know, been amazing. They put in chandeliers, they put in new blinds everywhere. They redid the carpet. They put down laminate in the kitchen. They've upgraded the faucets. They put in light sconces. Like
Wow.
they're putting thousands of dollars into this home of ours. And I say, well, I don't care. Go ahead. They keep upgrading. It looks like it's out of a magazine how nice this house is. So when I was doing the recent Fannie Mae refi, I had to show them a couple houses. We made sure to stop by that house and say, here you go. They're all taken care of. We had to go in like 5 out of 30 something. And they went in that one and it looked great. So, oh, I don't know if I have any crazy stories off the top of my head. I know I've seen, we had homeless guys at one time come by and they were stealing the sheds, but they were stealing the shed one piece at a time. They'd come at night and those big Rubbermaid sheds, there's 4 sides and a floor and 2 pieces of the pitched roof. They'd take one piece at night, they'd come back the next day, take another piece, and they were hauling it off into the woods and building a little home for themselves. And it's just like, I don't know why you would steal one piece at a time, right? But they did. And another time that we had that problem for a minute over there. Austin was doing a showing and opens the closet and there's a homeless guy just standing in the closet, just looking at him. And I would have jumped and or kicked at the guy or something. Austin's like, hop in my car, I'll drive you off property. And he took the guy for a ride and said, "Oh, move, you can't come back." But I mean, then I think another guy was he broke into one of the homes, got a blanket, and was seen running around the park, kind of half crazed, with this blanket. And at the end of the day, people are calling the police, calling us, and the guy got away, but the blanket was returned to a different home, and it was like there was leaves on it and stuff, and it had been he just would go into the home, didn't take anything else, didn't do any damage, didn't even just popping in, popping in the next one. We don't know how many homes he got in.
Hmm.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I don't have any really funny stories offhand, but anything else? Anything else lighthearted you want to share before we jump?
I think that's all I got this morning, Ferd.
All right, sounds good. Talk to you soon.
Okay, see you.
See you.